Last week we were discussing about the universe above and below, and I threw in some, some trick questions and stuff like that. Now, probably in this time that you've practiced, right, doing your homework and stuff like that, going through last week, you probably noticed some stuff with like, I don't know if it's a buy or a sell. Okay, this is a common confusion that comes in, and we're gonna explain that. This has a lot to do with how support and resistance is being taught in the industry, right? So if you have some knowledge of support equals resistance, leave it aside. I'm going to teach it to you in a different way. Okay, so let me first go into a chart. Let's take a look at pound New Zealand, for example. Okay, that's a trade there. Let me just close, delete everything. Let me go into, let's say, the daily. Okay, just for the sake of an example. Now we're coming here on the daily, and we're looking at this as let me find a perfect example. Right here. You see this spot right here? What would you look at that as? Is that seller's market? Like that? Or is that buyer's market? Like that? Okay, so we're going to get into what we call territories and who's responsible in these set of videos, okay? Because there are some confusions that might come up in the MPA course when I go deeper into all this stuff. So generally, when a breach happens, we consider it a new territory. So for example, in the first set of videos in the core course, you'll saw that the moment it halts a bit like that, we consider it that, okay, well, that's the lowest point. But the moment he breaches below, we consider that, okay, it's now officially breached. That breach means below here is seller's territory. Okay? Until the next halt. Okay? And then here we have the next halt. And then below here is seller's territory. Now, what about this here? Is that a buyer's territory or seller's territory? So we're gonna get into that stuff, because that part becomes confusing, right? So we'll get into some details for this here. So let's take a look at this particular example here. We had the market come down and holding, breach to the sell side. Here we go, comes all the way down to, there's the lowest point. Now this breach says this is seller's market. Okay? Now in the seller's market, assuming daily is your higher time frame, okay? Just keep your eye on that, saying that I get it, I'm looking at my higher time frame first. You know, there's a sequence of orders that you need to do things. The first thing you need to do is understand the universe above you. And the universe above you says this is seller's territory. Okay. Now the next thing you want to know is from the seller's territory is who started it. Now why do we call this the seller's territory, and why do we draw a line there? Okay, we'll get into that in a bit, and I'm explaining that to you, because now there's another line that needs to come in. Who started it is the guy who was responsible to have the energy to break through this stop area. It wasn't him, because when they came down it bounced. It wasn't him, because when he came down it bounced. It's this guy, because he didn't bounce, he went straight through. So the guy who's responsible is that person who does the steamrolling, who basically goes through the whole thing. Make sense? So for example, if I say this is the breach, right? We all know what a breach is now. Who's responsible for this breach? It's not this guy, because when he came down, he bounced and he went up. Look at this green candle, went back up. It's this guy right here. He started from here, that's the opening price. And then he went straight through, steam rolling, blah, 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 blah. Like the little cars that make the road, the steam rollers. So basically that the last power basically is what we're looking at. So we say anything below that last power is seller's area. Now you must be thinking, well, wait a minute, Naveen, then why do we need a line at the breach as well? Because the breach is very psychological. That breach is so psychological, people will remember that. Now, why do people remember this area here? Let me explain something to you. When you look at just this area here, okay, I don't know if you have some knowledge of trading yet or not. You might have this soon, or if you're watching this for the second or third time after going through the MPA course, you might be looking at this like, oh, I can clearly see that's a range. And in a range, how do people buy and sell? Okay, if that's a range, you buy from the bottom, you sell from the top, right? Very simple and clear. Now, if you're buying from the bottom here, and instantly the market goes like that, this is gonna cause panic, right? This is gonna cause panic. So the reason why we say the guy who started it is really responsible is because there are panic traders. Now, if you're a buyer, right? These areas, you're a buyer here. You're a buy order in the market. You bought it. What happens when you want to get rid of your position? How do you close a trade that you've bought? You sell it. So if you were a buyer and suddenly the market's going against you, you are now a seller. You're gonna add to the selling of the entire market flow. All of these people are gonna sell also. All the chasers, they're gonna sell also. So not only are they sellers, but you're also a seller now because you need to get rid of your position, right? Or if you hit a stop loss, well, what do you think that stop loss is? It's a sell, right? Because it has to close your buy. Okay, so when you think of it that way, there's a lot of power that goes into here. This is one of the reasons why even supply and demand gets generated. Okay, a lot of people, when they look at supply and demand, this is a concept you'll learn later on, they look at it like, oh, okay, well, it's this area here, but without knowing any logic of why, how, and understanding any of that stuff. There's no, recollection of, I just want to draw it and that's my supply because someone said so. No, come on, we gotta step up the game here, right? So when we're looking at this area, so let's take a look at another example here. So when we said let me find you one. Let's say here. This is a good example. Boom. Okay. When we say that area, the breach happened right here. That's the psychological break, because that's when people are freaking out. Like, oh my God, I was trying to buy it, it turned into a sell. That's why an SNR from a breach is more powerful. Okay? But even if the market comes higher than that line, it's still seller's area as long as we don't go over the guy who started it. The guy who started it is still around as seller, which is the reason why you need to keep selling until that guy gets broken. Okay? On to some next examples. I'm going to make this more clear as we go through more and more examples.